Welcome everyone to Brave Leadership. This is a special bonus training I'm offering to anyone who wants to join and really understand what is Brave Leadership. And more importantly for today, we're going to talk about the 10 tips that turn acts of courage into a habit of brave leadership. You see, when we're going to see massive changes in the world in the next 10 years, and it's going to make the last 10 years look like a party. And to thrive as a business leader or as a business owner, you need to be a brave leader. Why? Well, because to grow beyond what you've done before, to push beyond the edge of your comfort zone, beyond what you've mastered, you're going to have courage and bravery. You're going to have to develop those skills. And going past that threshold is scary most of the time for most of us. And just beyond our comfort zone is where all of the growth happens. That's where our company is going to grow. That's where you're going to grow as a leader. That's where our customers are going to look for us to meet them because they want to grow. So think about it this way. I was reflecting as I was thinking about this and what to bring to you. And I realized that when I started my company, my customer experience consulting firm, back in 2009, Facebook was still 3 years away from offering paid advertising and years away from offering any type of live streaming like we're doing right here. And I'm now broadcasting live on Facebook to business owners and leaders like you. And I'm sure that some of you have probably looked at using Facebook marketing or some other means of marketing through Facebook or selling through Facebook. So look at how things have changed just in the last 10 years. It didn't even exist 5-6 years ago. I remember earlier this year that I was really resisting this opportunity to do live video here on Facebook. I felt this, fear of failing, fear of embarrassment. I've spoken from the stage in front of thousands, but for whatever reason, getting on camera here and doing it on Facebook just really freaked me out. There's no editing, there's no covering mistakes, there's no fixing it. And I would not be here with you right now talking about this topic if I did not make the decision with courage to do my first broadcast. And then to do another one, and then to do another one. It took me months of thinking I should do a broadcast live, and then being too afraid to even try it. And once I started, it took me months of practicing and perfecting and working with it. And I'm still not perfect. I'm far from perfect. And you're going to see mistakes. I've already made a few on this broadcast already. I'm going to make more as I go. But the point is, I have enough courage to get out here and to do it. And every time I get out here, it becomes a little less uncomfortable. Most of the time when the camera goes on, I'm thrilled to be online. I'm thrilled to be here teaching, to be sharing with you. No matter how many of you are out there, I'm thrilled to be here. Now, it does sometimes mean that I have nervousness. And sometimes it's easier that when I take action, I look back and I remember all those times where I was trying to take action and I felt the fear and suddenly got enough courage and I took action. So I remember what it felt like when I took the action. And I did it again and again because every time I did it, I found that I was less and less afraid. In other words, with practicing courage moment by moment, I'm building this character of being a brave person. And soon I expect that I will not have a bit of fear about getting online and doing live broadcasts. But think about it for yourself. Think about the first time that you rode a bike, drove a car, asked a girl or a boy that you liked on a date for the first time. Most of us were afraid. But eventually, we did not feel the fear. We were brave. Eventually, it became normal for us. Think about those police officers, firefighters, soldiers, all those who do some brave or heroic act. They'll say, I was just doing my job, and they mean that sincerely. These are examples of brave leaders. You see, what looks brave from the outside, because we believe we could never do it, actually feels normal to the person doing it. You see, there's a difference between bravery and courage. Courage is acting while being afraid, and you've got to start there. Being brave means you don't feel the fear because you see yourself as the person that takes these types of actions, that makes these types of decisions. In other words, it's normal to you, but it's not normal to everyone else. So think about the fears that come up day to day as you build your business, as you grow your business. Does it stop you from deciding or acting? Is it paralyzing you? Now imagine you could summon the courage to face your fears just for a moment. It showed up instantly, but it was just there for a moment. You felt the courage to make the decision that you need to make right now. You take the action you need to take right now. You do what's required in this moment right now. Maybe this is how it starts for you. And every time you act with courage, you feel a bit more courage. You take another action again and again and again. You keep repeating this. Over time, you will realize that your acting courageously has becoming a habit. It's no longer something you have to think about. It's now your habitual way of operating. And then maybe if you continue to practice that courageous habit again and again and again, one day you'll realize that you're not even feeling fear. That the challenges that you were paralyzed by in the past are just normal now. Doing them is normal. Making these decisions is normal. And maybe you're even thrilled to make those decisions. This is the point at which you know you're brave. Your very character has changed. People look to you as an example of bravery, and you're just thinking, I'm just doing my job. This is just who I am. And that's what I call the bravery paradox. It's that when we are truly brave, we don't know it because to us, it's just part of who we are. It's a trait of who we are. It's kind of like fish when they're swimming in water. If you ask a fish about the water they're swimming in, they say, what water? They don't know. It's normal to them. That's where they live. How would it feel to you if it was really part of your life? If it was normal for you to do the things that scare you now, but it was normal to do them without any fear. It was normal to do them maybe with a thrill and with enthusiasm, looking forward to them. As I said, courage is acting in the face of fear. Courage is an emotion. And researchers have found that each of these emotions we feel lasts no more than 90 seconds. They come up as a wave, they wash over us, and they're gone. They last no more than 90 seconds because it's a chemical process in our body. My good friend and internationally known psychotherapist, Dr. Joan Rosenberg, is actually publishing a book on this very topic right now, how to master these emotional waves. I've had some long conversations with her about these emotions and how we can work with them. So if you take this practice of courage in the moment, and we're going to go through the 10 tips, the 10 steps for you here in a little bit, but I want to give you a good idea of where I'm coming from and where you can come from too. So if you take these moments, moment by moment, improving your courage, acting on courage, and you develop this habit where it becomes automatic for you to do courageous things. So when you feel the fear, it automatically triggers, oh, time to be courageous, right? That's what the habit of fear the habit of courage creates. When you feel the fear, automatically you switch into courage and you take the action, you make the decision. You just know that that's how you do it. It's just like when you get in the car, you habitually put the key in the ignition and turn the key. That's a habit. You had to think about it at one point in time. You don't anymore. You just know when you sit in the driver's seat in the car, the key goes in the ignition. That's the same thing with this habit of courage. Once you feel fear and you have the habit of courage, of being courageous, you'll feel the fear, and then you'll step into courage immediately. Bravery, though, goes deeper. Bravery is this character trait that can be developed. None of us are born with bravery. We develop bravery. You look at the Navy SEALs, the Army Rangers, these elite military. I've had the distinct honor and pleasure of being able to work with them, to train them. And they'll tell you that they have developed the courage to do the things that they do. And now it's normal for them. Now we look at it and say, wow, look how brave those men and women are. And it is true, they are brave. But again, bravery is a character trait. It's just who they are. It's a self-identity. I am the person who does these types of things. No matter what the condition or what the circumstance is, this is who I am. And that's the difference between courage being an emotion, something we feel, and bravery being who we are. There's a distinct difference between those two. And knowing that is going to really help you as we go forward. So I said a few minutes ago how the next 10 years are going to make the last 10 years look like a party. So let's look at some changes over the last 10 years just to put it in perspective. And I'll kind of tell you about what I've seen both as a customer experience and human experience researcher, where companies are headed and what's going to change for us both from a technological perspective, an economic perspective, and a social perspective, just to give you a framework of what you as a business leader, as a business owner, will be facing. So if we look back, there's really three areas again. In the past 10 years, we can look at these things and we'd see that it took courage for us to move from where we were to where we are now. But the speed of change is amping up. And we're going to have to be able to develop this habit of courage so that we are courageous more often and hopefully develop this trait of bravery and become brave leaders. In technology, there's been this, in the last 10 years, a technology explosion. 10 years ago, this year, in 2007, the smartphone was introduced. The first iPhone came out. Now there are apps for everything. We're always connected. There are new things coming out daily. Think about all those companies that fell behind. Where's BlackBerry at? Think about all those companies that don't have apps and have lost business as a result of it. Did you know that nearly 50% of small businesses don't even have a website? Don't even have a website. I'm talking about the smartphone and the apps, and they don't even have a website yet. They are so far behind. Those companies are going to die unless they catch up. And the problem with that is when 50% of these small companies, these local companies, don't have a website, what happens when most of us are out there, we're driving around, we're trying to find something, we're looking for a place to eat or maybe a place to buy a product or a service. And what do? We pull up our cell phone and we look for it. We look to see who's in the area. Where can we go? We use Google Maps or whatever it may be. And they don't show up. Now let's fast forward 10 years. Where they're telling us the technology is going, we're not even going to have a smartphone. We may have glasses or some other wearable device that creates an augmented reality for us, which means you think of Pokemon Go, like where you held your phone and you could see the Pokemon characters, looking at your phone. Well, that's going to be in glasses or other devices, maybe even contact lenses. So think about it this way. You're driving down the road and you say, you know what? I need to find a place to get some Chinese food, or I need to find a place to buy a screwdriver or a hammer or whatever it is. And with the glasses or the contacts that you're wearing, you could literally look at the stores around you as you're driving down the road, and it'll give you an indication if they have what you're looking for or not. Maybe the prices. I mean, think about it. You could be shopping as you're driving effectively. Now, that may seem far-fetched, but it's actually not. The research that I've been reading on is that we're closer to that than we actually believe. And by 2025, that could be the most common thing. It could be more common than people carrying cell phones today. That's what they're saying. So think about that. How is that going to affect what you do in your business? What will you have to change? What will you have to embrace between now and then? Now, if you feel this fear coming up, just be okay with this. We're in a safe space. We're talking about this right now. So just take a breath and let that subside for a moment, because really the challenge here is, how are you going to be courageous enough to make the changes you need to make? How are you going to develop the trait of bravery? I have a client who, he's the CEO of a technology company, and they've had the same product for 20 years. They've made advancements on it and that, but they have seen some massive changes in what the product needs are for their customers. And a few years ago, it was the first time he called me. He asked me to come in. He said, we're doing a company retreat. I'd like to have you here for 2 to 3 days. The company was facing a potential loss of a major client, and the CEO knew that the team was worried because they knew it probably meant cutting jobs and things like that. It was such a large portion of their revenue. And they were so worried, so filled with fear that they were unable to act, to come up with creative ideas about how they could bring new value to the client. And so I worked with the team for 2 days, giving them some inspiration, giving them some ideas, helping them get really courageous and start conversations and discussions that led to new creative ideas. Now, we didn't solve the problem in those 2 days, but over the next couple of months, because they were inspired and courageous and they had these courageous conversations, what would happen is that they eventually made valuable product updates. And this continual growth turned into a habit of courage, which allowed them to making a pitch to a new client, and they ended up landing the largest contract the company's ever had in 20 years. So not only did they save their old client, but this habit of courage allowed them to sign their biggest client ever. And now they're working on a new version of their product. I have the pleasure of working with them again because they're using this habit of courage and their brave leadership skills to bring this new product to market. So technology explosion, that was the first thing that we're going to see. We've already seen a lot of it happen. We're going to see it accelerate. The second thing to look at is the economic implosion. In the last 10 years, we've all seen the greatest economic crash, recession, whatever you want to call it, in our lifetime. We've also hit an all-time high. The other day, I think I saw it hit 23,000. How high will it go? Well, it's not going to go up forever. We know it's going to drop. Now, I'm not trying to be a doomsday forecaster predictor, but the reality is the economic cycle happens. We will be facing another downturn. I was doing some research in the hospitality sector, and they're saying between 2 to 3 years, they think hospitality will drop off. It's starting to show some signs of slowing, but it's probably another 2 to 3 years before it really drops. So the drop is going to happen. And if we're in the good times now, doesn't it make sense to really practice being courageous now and building up your economic engine now so that when it does drop, no matter how low or how long that lasts, you're prepared for it? I've got a client who, taking this in mind, they coach executives, and she's been speaking at conferences or events or doing, like chambers and other luncheons and service organizations and networking in person to generate leads and clients. But she began to see that her conversion rate was going down. And while the cost of hosting these events or sponsoring the events was going up, she was getting less and less clientele out of it. And she started getting scared because she was afraid her business would fail. So she turned and she contacted me and said, what do we do about this? And we started looking at different options. And she turned to delivering webinars so she could reach worldwide, not just her local regional area there. So she could attract clients from all over. So she's using her creativity. And she's courageously looking at things saying, what could I do? And this was really frightening to her at first because she had to learn about new technology. She had to find the resources, the tech people to set it up for her because she didn't really want to learn how to do the technology, how to implement the technology. She's the CEO. She's the coach. She's the one that earns the money for the company. Then she had to write the webinars. Then she had to get on camera and actually practice and then teach. And at every step of this process, she had to face her fears with moments of courage so she could make decisions and act. Now she's developed this habit of courage, and I see it week to week. We still have one-on-one conversations. And she's gone every single month now creating a webinar, maybe with 1 or 2 exceptions. But she's created these webinars, and she's actually recording an entire coaching program, excuse me, via video. And her clients are more engaged. They're signing up at higher and higher levels now. I recently got a text from her. I was really thrilled to see this because she offered one of her existing clients a new program that she has, a higher level program. She enrolled this client in this higher level program. And she told me that it was a result of our one-on-one coaching call because during that coaching call, I helped her move into the state of remembering the courage, the feeling of courage, and the feeling of being patient and calm during a sales meeting. And as a result of that, she was able to hold her composure, make the offer, make the invitation, and enroll that client. Okay, so we've talked about the technology explosion. We've talked about the economic implosion. The third force that's really affected us in the last 10 years and is only going to continue to accelerate is social transformation. In the past 10 years, the millennials have come into the workforce as the most educated generation. No doubt about that. But they're not following the path of their parents and past generations for a number of reasons: debt, different value systems, etc. So they're not buying cars, they're not buying houses, they're not getting married nearly as early as before. The other side of it, boomers are working longer. Some are retiring, but many are working longer. And those who are retiring from their official corporate job are actually, a lot of them are going on and starting this next phase of how do they give back? How do they do something new with their life? Got some good friends, some clients who they've retired from their corporate job as a C-level executive, and now they're starting their own coaching or transformation business, or they're consulting out there. They're doing something to help the world. They're joining a nonprofit and leading a nonprofit. This shift will continue to impact us as we live in society. One of my clients, they're actually a vacation resort, and they've got a timeshare branch of their company. They asked me to come in and work with their team because what they were seeing is that sales were declining. There was more competition in the area. And so they were afraid that they would not meet their goals and quota. And I was able to help them because when I looked at what they were doing, they were coming from a place of fear. And everything they did, the way they wrote their copy, the way they did their sales, everything they did was all around fear. And so I moved them, helped them see that they need to address courage. They need to take on courageous action. And as a result, they've made a lot of improvements in their guest experience, and they've amped up their sales revenue. Now, all of these changes cause tremendous uncertainty. All of these changes, the technological explosion, the economic implosion, and the social transformation. It creates worry, even fear, that we are a society on edge, that businesses are changing so rapidly. Will we be able to keep up? We've got to have new skills constantly. Old skills need to be updated. We need to invent new things that have never been invented before, new ways of doing business. So what's going to happen in our business and our lives over the next 10 years? Well, we've been taught that bravery is about charging forward no matter what. But the reality is we get burned out. Every one of us do. We've been taught that we need to have this massive willpower, reservoir willpower. But the reality is it diminishes without the right environment, without the right inspiration, without support. We've been told that we need to be like this superhero 24/7, wearing our cape all the time, always ready to go. But the reality is so many of us don't see ourselves that way. We don't feel it's possible for us to be courageous for a day, much less a moment, when we're making a decision or taking an action. So we need a new way. And that's why I'm going to share with you right now the 10 tips that can help you really turn your courageous actions into a habit of bravery, a habit of brave leadership. So let's walk through these 10 tips, or you can call them 10 steps if you want to, because that's really what they are. And I learned these. There's an article I wrote recently, and that's actually what inspired me to do this webinar, this live training, because the article I wrote was so well received. And I walked through my journey of moving from fear to courage, to a habit of courage, and now into brave leadership. Because there are areas where I do know I am a brave leader, but there are areas where I'm still afraid, still feeling courage, and still have to summon courage in the moment. So let's take a look at these 10 steps. The first one is, when you feel courageous, act immediately and then repeat. Act immediately and then repeat. I've learned that when you feel courage, acting immediately will help. Why? Because it gives you this boost of the feel-good chemicals like dopamine. Because you feel like you've achieved something that was challenging, that was really hard for you to do. And when you do that, naturally, our body rewards us with dopamine. And if we feel good and we feel courageous, we need to act again right away. We need to keep that cycle going, because what happens is it builds a cellular memory in our bodies. We remember what it feels like, and we want to have more of that feeling. It actually, in some sense, becomes addictive. Now, psychologists don't want you to call it addictive, but really that's what it is. When we achieve something that is growth-oriented, beneficial for us, we want more of it because it's rewarding. It feels good. Think about a time when you were courageous enough or decided to act. You know, you made a decision, you decided to act. The moment after you made that decision, or the moment after you acted, you probably felt a release or like a weight lifted from your shoulders. These are really common explanations when I talk to leaders and they go through this and they really think about courage. This is a change in the chemical state in your body, which then causes the state of your consciousness to change. You see, when your emotions change and what you feel changes, your consciousness changes, which means your thoughts change. You think different thoughts when you feel different things. The corollary is true as well. When your thoughts change and your consciousness changes, your emotions change. So think about something you're grateful for and you feel grateful. Think about your significant other. Think about your kids. Think about your parents, whatever it is. Think about someone who you are grateful is in your life. And it brings feelings of gratitude. You feel the gratitude. So this works either from top down, thinking to feeling, or from bottom up, feeling to thinking. And if we're aware of that, when we're feeling good, we can go take more action. And that's a place where most of us start, as we start out by, how do I feel? Okay, now I'm going to go take action. I don't feel like doing it right now. I'm not going to take action. And in truth, that's what stops most people who are in a state of fear, because they feel fear. They're not going to act. They want to avoid the feeling of fear. But here's the really cool thing. If you act, most often the fear goes away. Because the fear is not about the thing you're doing. The fear is what you imagine you will feel once you do the thing, and if you fail at doing the thing. So let me walk through that with an example. The first time that I was going to go live, or actually as leading into before I even went live with a broadcast like this. I went for months in a state of fear and worry and concern because I thought I'm going to fail. What if the technology doesn't work? All these things came up in my mind. And I didn't act on it. I avoided going live. I came up with excuses, distractions. I tried all kinds of other stuff. But nothing was going to be the same as going live on Facebook. So I eventually summoned enough courage to say, okay, I'm just going to get out there and do it. And if I fail, I fail. But I'm going to do it once. And I did it once. And the first time I did it, guess what? The technology failed. It crashed and burned. I deleted it. I went out there and had to redo it. It wasn't very good even the second time. But the point is, I had to go back, and because I wasn't feeling it, I was fearful. The emotions were causing me to think the thoughts I was thinking. It was causing me to do the actions that I was taking. But when I switched it, when I said I made the decision, I thought, and I forced myself to think a different thought no matter what I felt. That's courage. When you choose to think a different thought no matter what you feel, especially if it's unpleasant. That's the courage, right? And so when I had the courageous moment and I got out there and I started doing it, all of a sudden there was this release. And yeah, I messed up, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. No one made fun of me. I didn't have to think badly about myself. I actually was able to think positively about myself because, hey, I actually finally did it. Then I wish I should have started this a long time ago. It's not that bad. And now I do at least once a week, usually more than that, actually. I'm online doing a live broadcast of some kind, whether it's a Google Hangout or whether it's a teaching class or whether it's Facebook Live, something, I'm out there. So it's important for you to recognize tip number one. When you feel courageous, act immediately and then repeat. Tip number two, or step number two, create a marker. We'll talk about what a marker is here in a moment, but create a marker and memorize what courage feels like so you're more aware of it. A marker in my mind is like a landmark on a map. You've got a whole map here you're looking at, or maybe it's, you've got your GPS and you put in your destination, right? And there's turns along the way and the GPS knows when to tell you when to turn at the next exit, etc., right? Those are all landmarks. What's important is that as you're developing, you don't even have the habit of courage yet, but you're just having these courageous moments, you want to go back and memorize what it feels like or what it may have felt like in the past to be courageous. And you want to recall it and bring it up. And how you memorize a feeling. I take salespeople through this. I take leaders through this quite often. How you memorize a feeling is you allow the feeling to come up, and then you just, close your eyes. You can take a deep breath and just feel it. And you're in a safe space, so allow yourself to feel it. And then you begin to look at and think about, where is it in your body? What color is it? How warm or cold is it? Is it rough or smooth? I mean, there's a number of different ways I take people through and give them this kind of physical definition of what a particular emotion feels like. And then we go through a process of amplifying it where it fills them up. It expands out beyond them. It goes beyond you and the people you're working with, or, for salespeople, the leaders, I have it go beyond the people that they're trying to work with and help and move. And so that they can memorize the emotion because they're focusing on it. They're feeling it. They're engaging in it again and again. And so what happens is that when you memorize an emotion, you're feeling it in your body and you memorize it in your mind, and then you put a marker on and said, this is what it feels like to be courageous. You can use a word, you can use a picture, you can use a sound. Different people have different things that they use as a marker that says, in this moment, this is what courageous feels like. And they have that fullness of the feeling. And then they use some type of marker. And that marker, again, could be a word, courage, or it could be yes, or whatever comes to them. Because when they trigger that marker again in the future, it will trigger and bring back all of that emotion of courage. And they can amplify it again. The more you think about an emotion, the more you feel an emotion, the stronger it makes the wiring in your brain. So every emotion is the product of wiring in our brain, because it's triggering chemical reactions in our brain. It's triggering electrical signals in our brain. So it becomes normal over time. The more you think about it, the more you feel it. It becomes the normal way of doing things over time. So that's how a courageous moment turns into a habit of courage, because it becomes the easiest thing to do without thinking, because you've done it so many times. It's like taking a dirt path and turning it into a highway. Well, over time, if the dirt path is the moment of bravery, or I'm sorry, the moment of courage, and the highway is, the 2, 3, 4 lane highway, whatever it is, right? That is the habit of courage. Then the Autobahn is the trait of bravery. So your brain is actually rewiring itself every time you go into a courageous moment. Every time you use the habit of courage, every time you engage in something and are brave. Now, remember the bravery paradox. Oftentimes we don't even realize we're being brave. We just go out there and do it because that seems like the right thing to do, the normal thing to do for us, because of who we believe we are, our self-image. Now, this process helps you because if you go through this process of memorizing the feeling and building a marker for it, you can recall it on demand. I'm going to come back to that and how to use that in a few moments here. Step 3, decide now, right now, decide how you will act when you feel courage in the future. Now, this is a really powerful tool. Again, if you're kind of in that early stage of developing courage, you're taking on something new that you still haven't developed a habit of courage around, then what you can do is you can say, okay, when I feel courage, I will do this. When I feel courageous, I will make a sales call. When I feel courageous, I will take this action. Right? So it's called advanced decision making. It's very powerful because you're telling your mind right now, when I feel this way, and that's where the marker comes in, the memorization of the feeling, right? When I feel this way, I will do this. It's almost like if you were trying to change habit, one of the best ways to change your habits or add a new habit in is like putting it alongside a habit you already have. So if you're brushing your teeth as an example, and you say, you know what, every morning when I brush my teeth, I'm going to listen to some affirmations, or I'm going to listen to a motivational speech as I'm brushing my teeth. So you go and you start brushing your teeth. Well, the habit becomes I brush my teeth, I hit the play button on my phone, I'm listening to some type of motivational thing, right? That happens to be one of my routines. So I've developed a habit of that now. It's normal for me to do that. And if I don't do it, something feels off, right? So you can do the same thing, that if you make the advanced decision now, when I feel courage, I will do X. That'll really help you, because what happens is it allows your mind to automatically direct your behavior, because you're directing your subconscious mind, giving it an order. It's like coding in a computer. If this, then this. So you think, if I feel this, I'm going to do this. So that was step 3. Step 4 is to summon the memory of the feeling of courage when you notice you're feeling fear. Now, this gets into a little more advanced stage. This is where you're shifting from being reactionary, a person who's reacting to how you feel, reacting to your environment, which you can move that. You've got to start someplace, right? But step 4 moves us into the choice. And this is where we begin to really develop the habit, because when we summon the memory of feeling courageous, when we feel fear, doubt, worry, concern, we're telling ourselves, if this, then this. If I feel this, I'm going to do this. So we've moved beyond, if we feel courageous, we're now going to take this action. Now we're saying, if we feel fear, we're going to choose to feel courage. So that's an advanced step. And this is where the practice of memorizing the feeling of courage comes into play. The more you've memorized it, the faster and better and the higher quality recall you have on that feeling of courage. And I've used this practice, like I said, to help salespeople memorize and recall what their best sales day ever felt like. And I'll get them to go through this practice of recalling and recalling and recalling, amplifying that feeling. And in one case, I had a salesperson. I remember she called me up. We'd done the exercise the day before, and she'd been in this slump for a really long time and just wasn't able to make her sales. Her bills were due. She was really stressed out. And I took her through an exercise similar to what I described, but a little more in depth, which I don't have time to do today. But I took her through this exercise of remembering what her best day ever in sales felt like, and really going deep into that feeling of it, remembering what was happening around her, what was being said, all of that. And I had her build a marker. so that when she had that memory, or when she hit that marker, it would bring the memory back and all those feelings back, because our body switches from emotions to consciousness to thought to behavior. And so kind of taking it from bottom up. And so I used that, and she called me and she said, "You're not going to believe this. In the first 3 hours of the day today, I sold more than I ever have." She'd been in this slump, and all of a sudden in 3 hours, she sells more than she ever had. Most of what happens for us is that we are fearful, we have unpleasant emotions, something's keeping us from doing our best, from performing at our highest. And when we have the courage to be willing to recall those emotions of when we were at our best, when we have the courage to do that, when we're willing to choose these feelings, we can achieve great things. So if you know how to recall, again, number 4 here is summoning the memory of the feeling of courage. So if you can feel fear and then you remember what courage feels like, you can start acting courageously in that moment, exactly when you're feeling the fear. Step 5. Again, we're moving now into the more advanced tools here. Step 5 is replace your language where you say being an emotion with feeling an emotion. Let me describe this in more detail. In the article, I'll tell you how to get to the article at the end of this, but the article goes into some depth here that if you don't quite get it here, read the article, because it might help you understand this even more. If you listen to people around you and maybe listen to yourself, pay attention to as you're talking, and someone says, "How are you today?" "I'm fine." "I'm not feeling so good." "I'm sick." "I'm doing well." "I'm great." We're responding to questions like this all the time. And we're talking to ourselves in our own head. We're saying things like, "I don't feel so good today." "I'm not so good today." Now, I'm having trouble here saying it because as I'm in the state of flow, as I'm teaching this, I'm going to my automatic habits, which is switching "I am" for "I feel." So let me describe this. Most people, when you ask them how they're feeling or how they're doing, they're going to say, "I am," and they're going to fill in the blank with an emotion. In other words, they are using their self-image in that moment. Their self-image is an emotion. They and the emotion are one. There is no separation. However, if you can think about it this way, instead of saying "I am happy," "I am sad," "I am angry," "I am frustrated," "I am joyful," you say "I feel happy," "I feel sad," "I feel angry," "I feel frustrated," "I feel joyful." There's a difference. And the difference is I am not identifying as the emotion. I'm identifying that I'm feeling an emotion. And the moment I can do that, it separates me from the emotion at a healthy distance. And there's a psychologist and psychotherapist that teaches, his name has slipped me, but he teaches how he takes his clients through a process, his patients through a process where if the emotion is so great and they feel like they're on the waves of the ocean bouncing up and down, right? He has them imagine going below, a couple feet below the waves in the ocean, and holding their breath and just observing the emotions that are happening as if they're the waves above them. So it's peace and calm all around them, but the waves of emotion are happening above them. And so this is a really important thing, shifting your language from "I am," fill in the blank with the emotion, to "I feel," fill in the blank emotion, changes how you're defining yourself and your self-image. You are more than your feelings. Your feelings are a chemical process in your body that is raised up to your consciousness. That is not who you are. That would be the equivalent of saying, "I am my finger." No, my finger's part of me. My emotions are just part of who I am and part of my design in this physical body. So I am more than my emotions. So be very careful and cautious about your language. And especially think about it this way. Never again say, "I am afraid." "I am fearful." "I'm worried." "I'm concerned." Never again. What you say instead is, "I feel afraid." I feel fear." "I feel angry." Because when you can shift from being fear to feeling fear, you have now taken control of your emotions. And that is powerful. That in itself is power. You are now in control. Now let's move on to step 6. Step 6. Again, we're moving into more and more advanced stuff as we go forward. And I'm giving you these things in the order that I learned them through my own life on this journey of courage. Step 6, chunk down the large challenges into smaller challenges that you feel courageous enough to act on. See, we've gone from this bottom-up approach. When we started, we're talking about when you feel courageous, take action. Now we're using our mind to make decisions and to make choices when we're not feeling courageous. So you see how we're advancing in this. And so if you can chunk down into smaller pieces the things that make you feel fear or make you feel overwhelmed, then you can believe that I can do this smaller thing. And it only takes a little bit of courage for a moment to make the decision to do it, and then a little bit of courage for a little moment to actually go do it. I can make this call. I can have this conversation. I can schedule this appointment. I can do these things. So the courage is there. But to say, if I was to say as an example, I'm going to sell $1 million this month. And if I was to look at that, I can tell you right now, I'd be afraid. Because what happens is it starts to get overwhelming for me to think about all the things that got to go into that. What am I going to do? How am I going to market this? What I'm doing? I've got to go through all that, right? And all of a sudden I become overwhelmed. But if I say, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to schedule a time that I'm going to look at what it would take to sell $1 million. Now, some people may say that's a cop-out. Okay, if you want to think of it that way, maybe you're more advanced in your courage than I am. For me, that's not a cop-out because I can tell you what will happen. If I sit there and think about, selling $1 million and I don't make any progress and 30 days passes and I haven't done anything, it's not helped me just to think about and make a decision. I'm going to sell $1 million. On the other hand, if I'm courageous enough to sit down and put an appointment on my calendar, and if I'm courageous enough to come to that appointment on my calendar when the time arrives, and I'm courageous enough to make a plan, and I'm courageous enough to make all these small steps, that at the end of 30 days, whether I've made $1 million or $100,000, I am further ahead than I would have been if I had tried to decide to make $1 million and felt fear the entire time and was paralyzed. So don't judge other people because they can't take the same courageous act as you. Help them to take the step they can. Look at yourself because there's a part of every one of us. I don't care who you are and how brave you are, how the habit of courage you may have, what you've done in the past. There's a part of every one of us that if we stretch beyond that, we will be scared to death. We'll be paralyzed. So it's not about powering your way through and hitting a wall and slamming your way through. And, some of these teachers out there make it seem like we've got to be superheroes 24/7 with this reservoir of willpower. Well, okay, maybe it works for some people, but most of the people I know and the people in my own life, that has not been the case. That is just not reality for me. I suspect there was a point in their life where they actually weren't brave, weren't courageous, and they developed it, and they now know how to transfer that skill, because it is a skill, of courage and bravery to new things that they do. But they've kind of forgotten how they got there, and they expect everyone else to have the same level of bravery and courage. I'm not telling you to wimp out. Heck no. On the other hand, you actually are going to be very courageous if you do this moment by moment, and you're going to achieve things and build on that habit of courage. So chunking it down allows you to create new habits, allows you to take on things that are just outside of your skill set and continue to improve day by day by day by day. If we improve 1% every day, we'd be miles ahead of where we are right now in a very short period of time. Chunking things down helps you reduce this belief that the challenge is so big, I can't do it, and the fear that's associated with that. It also allows you to focus and develop new skills so that the fear dissipates. You see, you can't learn new skills. And this is true from a perspective of you look at any learning research, it tells you you cannot learn when you're in a state of fear. You need to be safe and secure. So if you can chunk things down enough that you feel safe and secure, at least enough to have the courage to take the step forward that you need to take right now, you can develop new skills. Step 7. Decide to act until you're finished. Clear your calendar if necessary. Now, this one's really important. And this, again, the further we go, the more advanced these skill sets get. And there's a lot of people who say, right here, this will stop them. They'll say, you know what? I just can't do that. And Why this is an advanced one is because it's probably going to take you courage just to make the decision to act until you're finished. It's going to take courage to clear your calendar if necessary. It's going to take courage for you to say, I'm going to stick with this until. Just even thinking about making that decision for a lot of people is overwhelming. So if you're not here yet, go back to the other steps. But when you can take this on, decide that you're going to act until you are finished with whatever it is you've put your mind on, whatever it is you've decided to do. One of the key discoveries in my process of developing a habit of courage is that I had to block enough time on my calendar, and I had to commit to using that time to do the thing I was afraid to do. Those come hand in hand. It's not just about having time. It's also about committing the time, committing to using the time properly, because I could have a block of time on my calendar. I found myself doing this often. I'd have a block of time on my calendar, and I'd allow myself to be distracted, dissuaded, discouraged, whatever it was, and I wouldn't do what I was there to do. I'd check Facebook or something else, right? It almost always takes me longer to do what I'm afraid to do. And so I just have to book it and do it. I have to put my back against the wall, figuratively. I have to put my back against the wall and say, this is when I'm going to do this thing. And by this time, it's going to be done. And that gives me the opportunity to push myself beyond my limit. Because if I don't ever put it on my calendar, I can let it slip and slip and slip and slip, and it'll never get done. So use your calendar as a tool that you live by, especially when you're going beyond your comfort zone and trying to build this habit of courage. The calendar is an amazing tool that we have available to us. Step 8, visualize yourself running into challenges and failing. Now that's going to sound odd, but let me go through this here. Visualize yourself running into challenges and failing. Then visualize yourself being courageous, calm, and finding solutions. So for some of you, you may not be aware of what visualization is. Visualization is very simply a process of imagining an event or series of events as if they're happening. It's like watching a video in your mind, right? If you've been able to imagine something bad happening to you or someone else, you're visualizing. Now, all we're doing is returning that visualization and using it intentionally to do good, okay? So what you do is, pro athletes and Olympians and even the elite military forces actually use visualization techniques in preparation for what they're going to go do. And that's part of the reason that they actually perform at higher levels, because they practice it in their mind. It actually wires their brain to be ready to do those things. So there's a whole process of preparing for visualization, which includes, accessing gratitude and things like that. I'm not going to teach it all to you because this really goes more in depth than I can do in the time we have left here. But what I will say is that there are 3 parts of the visualization itself that I want to share with you. And again, I go much deeper into this with Brave Leadership Mastery and some of the other classes I have. The first thing is that you want to visualize yourself doing the thing you want to do. Okay, if you're feeling fear, you want to just visualize yourself doing it in the safety of your imagination. Write those words down, the safety of your imagination. Use the safety of your imagination to visualize what you are doing and visualize yourself doing it. Then, number 2, visualize yourself running into a challenge. They're going to happen. Not one of us is going to get through something we've never done before and not face a challenge. So just visualize yourself running into a challenge. Then visualize yourself solving or getting around or going over whatever it is, that challenge, that obstacle, and succeeding. So those 3 parts of the visualization are key. You've got to see yourself doing what you're doing, because that's building self-image of, I'm the person who does these types of things. You see yourself running into challenges, right? Now people say, well, you don't want to have a self-image of running into challenges. Well, guess what? It's going to happen anyway. So just acknowledge it. The third part of that is what's critical too. Visualize yourself as a person who solves the problem, gets over the challenge or the obstacle, and succeeds. So you want all part of these. You want to say, I'm the person who starts. I'm the person that keeps going when there's challenges. And I'm the person that succeeds. Now you've got a full self-image. One of my mentors calls this a scaffolding. I've kind of adapted hers a little bit, but she calls it a scaffolding, right? There's A, B, and C. I start, I'm doing these activities, I run into challenges, I can overcome those challenges, and then I can succeed, right? Okay, step 9. Review your successes of the past and reflect upon how you've acted courageously. Now, I highly recommend that you keep a courageous success list every day. And what do I mean by that? You should go through your day and review the moments of courage you had that day when you did something you were afraid to do, worried about, concerned about, but you took action or made a decision anyway. You want to be able to document those things, because when you document them, you can look back to them when you're feeling fear, and you can memorize and review and say, hey, when I did this, I was afraid, but look what happened as a result. You review those courageous moments at night, because you're reliving them and you're actually wiring your brain to say, I am a courageous person. Look what I did today that was courageous, even if it's just one. At the end of the year, if you just do one a day, you've got 365. Now, if you did 3 a day, which is what I usually recommend, write down 3 successes that are meaningful where you took courageous action. If you write down 3 a day, you've got over 1,000 a year. Now, can you look at your life a year from now and say, wow, I have 1,000 things I documented. I may have done more, but I at least wrote down 1,000 things last year that I did that was courageous, moments of courage. And look how that changed my life. Look where I am now. And you can review this list whenever you feel fear. If you can't use any of the other tools to get out of it, review this list. Review when you've been courageous in the past, the moments you've had, and it can trigger the memories of courage. Again, bottom up, trigger the memories of courage so that you begin to act and behave courageously. Step 10. We've gone all the way through these 10. Step 10 is choose your feelings regardless of your situation or circumstances. One of the greatest, and I think one of the most unused powers we have as humans is the power to choose our feelings. So we started this whole process from step 1 is bottom up. What are we feeling? How do we change what we're thinking? Now we're at the top down. We're saying, let's choose our feelings regardless of what's happening around us or inside of us. We are not our feelings. We have feelings. Remember, not I am angry or I am fearful or I am sad. Not even I am happy. I feel angry. I feel fearful. I feel sad. I feel happy. Give yourself the gift of having distance from your emotions, because you are not those emotions, good or bad. When we realize that we can choose to alter our feelings, like courage, we develop the skills to do so. We then become unstoppable. Because if I can look at myself and say, I'm feeling fear, but guess what? I know I can choose to be courageous in this moment if I want to be, then I can choose courage. And I can choose to take an action I would not have taken from the state when my mind and my consciousness is overwhelmed with fear. I can choose to change that. Now, I recognize this may not be where you are today. It may require you to go through the process of using steps 1 through 3, 4 through 6 or 7, maybe 8, 9, and 10, then building this habit of courage. Don't be hard on yourself, but be rigorous in the practice of courage, because you can do this. Now, I want to share a couple of resources. I'm looking at the time here. I want to share a couple of resources for you. If you want to take this further, this is not a sales call. I'm not here to sell you. I'm here to help you. I'm here to gift this to you. So there's 3 things I want to give you awareness of, so you can take action on this if you want to. If you found this interesting, but you want to understand a little bit more before you take another step, the first thing I'd recommend is reading the article I recently wrote. It's actually about my path on this journey of courage. So go to, write this down, 10stepcourage.braveleadershipmastery.com. And 10 there is 10. It's the digits. 10stepcourage.braveleadershipmastery.com. The second resource for you is if you would love to get daily tips, daily insights, if you want to be connected and in a community of people that are at least reading and consuming and potentially even talking about these topics here on Brave Leadership, I've got a Facebook group. It's called the Brave Leadership Facebook group. And you can get to that either by in the upper corner of Facebook there, you search for Brave Leadership, it should come up. If not, then what you can do is you can go to group.braveleadershipmastery.com. That's group.braveleadershipmastery.com. And the third thing is, if you feel like, you know what, this has been good, I'm ready to go deeper, I want to learn more about this, then what I'm going to encourage you to do is enroll in the Brave Leadership Mastery class. Now, the details of what Brave Leadership Mastery is as a program, they're all below this video. And above this video, you can see that in about an hour, we're actually going to kick off today's live session of Brave Leadership Mastery, which if you want, you can still get into that. But again, I'm not trying to sell you here. What I'm trying to do is say, if you want to go deeper into this, building the habit of courage, building the trait of brave leadership, I'd love to help you on that journey. I've been through it. I'm still on it in many areas of my life. So if you'd like to join me, you want to be part of that. Like I said, in an hour, we're going to start that. We do it every single week. If you can't make it this week, there's a recording. If you don't want to start this week, you want to start down the road, that's fine. We do it every single week. I'm here. We're always got a different topic. And you may not be able to get access to the archives. I only keep the archives for about 3 or 4 weeks out there. But if you go below, you can read more details about what Brave Leadership Mastery is, what I'm intending to do, and what I do for you in the program. There's a Q&A forum every week. I answer questions. The button to enroll, if you want to do that's at the bottom of the page. That's it. I'm not going to sell, okay? I hope you found these 10 tips to be valuable, to be useful for you. You know, if you got here partway through, I've seen the numbers go up and down. I get it. You've got things you're going, this is kind of a last minute thing. Watch this video again. Whenever it's going to be here for a while. It's going to be on this page right here for a while. www.braveleadershipmastery.com. www.braveleadershipmastery.com. You can see this video right here. Watch it again. Check out our other resources. If you have questions, you didn't get those web addresses, then just go ahead, message me, message my company. We'll get the information to you. Here's what I know. You have the capability to be courageous for a moment at least, to make a decision, to take an action that will alter the trajectory of your business and your life. And you're going to need that courage over the next 10 years as your business grows. As you continue to practice moments of courage, you will develop the habit of courage and automatically choose to be courageous even in the face of fear. Eventually, you can and will develop the trait of being brave. To you, it's just going to feel normal. It's just going to feel like this is who I am, this is what I do. But those around you, those who look up to you, whether it's your kids, your significant other, the people you work with, your customers, your community, to them, you will appear to be a brave leader because in truth, you are. On your journey of courage, you have the power in each moment to alter the trajectory of your life, of your business, and ultimately, you can even alter the trajectory of human history. This is what I believe. This is what Brave Leadership Mastery is focused on helping you do. It's been a pleasure and honor to be here with you. Again, check out the resources if you want to enroll in the program that's below. If you want the others and you didn't get the web addresses, just message me and I'll reach back out to you, or message my company and someone on my team will reach out to you. Have an amazing day.